we have to notify to the state government. That is, these are, we call some notifiable diseases are there, like acute gastroenteritis, malaria, dengue. You know, even if we get some dengue case in IIT, we used to we used to notify to the state government, so that they can find the actual number of the disease, no? If something is abnormal going on. And another thing, sometimes some disease are there, no? That never happens. Like yellow fever is not there in India, but that vector, no, which causes yellow fever, that is there in India. So that's why if suppose some travelers goes to Brazil, like those areas, no, where yellow fever is most prevalent, no, they have to take the vaccination, so that yellow fever does not come to India. And suppose if 1 or 2 cases of yellow fever comes to India, no, we can say it is an epidemic. It may not be a large number, but that is not necessarily present in India. Like that, so notification from a clinician is very important, so that epidemiologists, no, they can find out that preparedness, how to prepare for that. Then for clinician, other things are there. We have to take help of the laboratory for the proper diagnosis. Then comes clinical management. Clinical management just to prevent morbidity and mortality. At the same time, you know, ultimately clinician might help give you some data also regarding which medicine is working, which medicine not working, like that. So this is just a brief as a clinician. No, I presented my views. Now I may request Dr. Bhagatlal Datta, as because he is a health epidemiologist and data scientist. No, we want to know his view also. Dr. Datta, please.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. So we more or less, at the very outset, the lady over there told us about what an epidemic is basically. So we everyone now have an idea of what an epidemic is basically. And even Dr. Barua sir has already explained that how it becomes a pandemic when it breaks, goes beyond boundaries of countries and continents. It's termed as a pandemic. So I'm a kind of data scientist, so I would like to tell you a few things. Probably I don't know whether people are exposed to this thing or not. And let us start with like what are the recent epidemics or pandemics that the world has seen in the last 50 years. If we Google it, simply do a Googling or somewhere, we will get this information that there are about 10 or more like very much epidemics which are of viral origin, and they start as like if we consider for the last 50 years, then they start with like we can start with Marburg, which is a disease which actually started in Australia around late 1960s or around 1968, 69, 70 in Australia. Then Ebola, we heard of Ebola recently also in 2013 to 16. We saw in the newspapers that there was a large outbreak of Ebola in the African continent. Then there is something called Hanipa virus, which was a deadly respiratory or which results in deadly respiratory or neurological impairment. Then there is something very close to us, that is Nipah. That is not in India, but there are a few cases of Nipah infection in around Siliguri, but it is predominantly observed in Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is not that far from us. So from the point of view of, because the name of the session is, management of epidemics in India and the NER, what I would like to emphasize is from the point of view of NER. Then SARS, then H1N1, which we call as swine influenza, or swine fever actually. It's not swine flu, it's swine flu actually, sorry. Swine flu. Actually, this in 2019, there was a huge outbreak of H1N1 or swine influenza, whose number of people affected is even more than what the COVID-19 tally as of today. Actually, it was more than 7 crores. It was around it was somewhere between 7.5 to 8 crore people were exposed to this particular pathogen, and the mortality was around 3 lakhs. Then there is something called MERS, which is also called camel flu, which is a viral respiratory disease, which was first detected in Saudi Arabia. Then again from 2013 to 16, we saw that outbreak of Ebola. Then what we call is bird flu or avian influenza in 2013, which killed around 616 people. But it was even though the number of people infected was less, but the mortality was very high. Around 40% of the people who got the infection, actually they were killed. Luckily, in this COVID-19, the best thing is even though a large number of people are being infected with COVID-19, luckily, I'm sorry, whether I should say luckily or not, but since the mortality rate is quite low, it's less than 3% as of today. So we are lucky that even though we are having more than 5.5 crore people being infected, around 13 lakhs 33,000 people have already died across the world. So what are the common things about regarding all these pathogens? The common link is that they are zoonotic. They are of zoonotic origin. What is zoonosis? Basically, zoonosis is zoonotic pathogens are the pathogens which can infect both animals and humans. For example, encephalitis. For example, encephalitis actually it is a carrier. It is being carried to human by mosquitoes, but it is being amplified in the pigs. If there is no pigs, in most of the Muslim countries, there is very few number of encephalitis cases because there are no pigs. And nowadays there are encephalitis vaccination and everything going on in northeastern region, so there are less number of cases in the recent days, but we are endemic in encephalitis, which is a zoonotic disease, for example. Like rabies is a zoonotic disease. Whether we like it or not, so there are around 2,000 like human diseases there, which are infectious diseases, out of which more than 61% of these existing human infectious diseases are of zoonotic origin. That means the pathogens can infect both humans as well as other animals. Then 75% of the emerging infectious diseases of humans, including like those Ebola, HIV, and the influenza, this COVID-19 is also a kind of influenza, have been of animal origin. Interestingly, every year, 5 new human diseases emerge. Like till last year, we didn't know about COVID-19, but the fact is that these are WHO data that says that every year, 5 new human diseases appear. And interestingly, 3 of them are of animal origin. And something related to security of the country, that is 80% of the agents with potential bioterrorist use are of zoonotic pathogens. So we have seen that there is a close connection between the diseases in animals as well as the human pathogens. So if we have to summarize in the long future, the epidemiological or the disease risks may be of 3 types. First is the zoonosis that I was mentioning. Then second will be the risk of antimicrobial resistance. That will be a major issue going to affect us. Then third is food safety. Because when, like for example, there are common foodborne zoonosis like salmonellosis. We don't know this, but pork is very much susceptible to this disease. So it generally gets infected into pork, and when people consume pork, especially not well cooked pork, it is not like tapeworm. This is salmonellosis is different. It's a bacterial kind of disease. Then campylobacteriosis. Then the most common is E. coli. If antimicrobial resistance happens to these 3 types of very common food pathogens, then it will be very difficult to control. We will all have like very serious public health concern. Now, sorry, let me see. I forgot to put the timer, so anyway. Then the thing is that, see, for most of these diseases, if you look at the origin, I'm coming back to our Northeast concern basically. The most of the diseases actually their origin is at either in East Asia or China. Most of the diseases except MERS and Ebola. Ebola is basically Africa-centric. And the thing is that what correlates to the sites where these diseases emerge is that these areas have very high concentration of integrated farms of animals, like piggeries, poultry farms, everything is there. So, and recently after this COVID, interestingly, our government in Assam as well as Arunachal, the Northeast governments, they're pushing a lot of livestock activities as livelihood generation scope of the people. Now the risk will be, and one thing we have to keep in mind, there are stern similarities between the lifestyle and the demographic of the East Asian countries and the Northeast, even the food habits. So we don't know, maybe like the Nipah is there, Nipah is knocking our doors in our neighbor Bangladesh. It may anytime come to Assam. There was a few cases of Nipah in Siliguri. Nipah is interesting. It is being spread from tal gur, your tal gur. Yeah, so jaggery, that's palm jaggery. Tal gur, which is contaminated by the saliva of bat. But interestingly, it can be transmitted from human to human also, once one person is being infected. And the symptoms are similar to our encephalitis. It's a kind of encephalitis actually. So given the circumstance situation that our Northeast is very much similar to the China and other parts, actually there is a huge risk that one day we don't know. We are now today laughing at China, we are pointing towards China, or Malaysia said that you started this particular virus. Maybe if we are not careful enough regarding the management of the diseases and preventive measures, then probably in 2 or 3 years, somebody else will point at us. Northeast India is the epicenter of this particular disease. So let's think about some strategy where we can prevent this thing happening. Thank you very much.
Good morning to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee for just inviting me for this very important session that's called Management of Epidemics in India and Northeastern Region. So I'll just change the accent a little bit. You just listen a little bit about the epidemics from a clinician, a hardcore clinician, Dr. Barwa, and then you talked about and a little bit about how you can manage the activity in the clinical setup and all. And then I also looked into epidemiologist, and Dr. Bhagatlal has explained a little bit about how you can manage the epidemics in India and all. And I'm a hardcore researcher, so I will just talk about the research point of view, and also a teacher. So I'll talk a little bit about the teaching aspect also. So since you do understand at a present scenario, it's a very, very important topic altogether to discuss about epidemiology. It's a subject actually, epidemiology, and epidemics is a part of that epidemiology. And then you have internally, if you go and just start hunting the subject, you have pandemic and other kind of similar term. I'll just give you an example so that you can understand nicely. Everybody of you know about rabies, right? And kind of understanding to the people about rabies is transmitted by a bite of a dog, a rabid dog, right? So there are something which are transmitted from animal, right, to human beings, and we always blame animal that these diseases are transmitted from animal, but we are also a worse animal. We are also transmitting various kind of diseases to animal as well, right? So if you start looking into the terminology, the diseases which are transmitted from animal to humans are called zoonotic diseases, right? And when you start in opposite way, the diseases which are transmitted from human to animals are called zooanthropogenosis, right? So there are terminologies associated with epidemiology. It's a great subject to look into. Of course, there are very little aspect and the scope of research in this area per se, in a broad scale, I'm saying. And also, since Dr. Datta also talked about a lot of diseases which are all very pertinent. And there are two things which is very important for northeastern part of the country when it comes to northeastern part of the country. You know, we are surrounded by huge international boundaries. The one thing which you can't control is migration of animals, right? Particularly migration of birds. So you can't stop migration of birds flying from China to Assam or say in other part of Northeast, and it's true vice versa also. Various kind of diseases are transmitted by these flying animals, and one such classical flying animals is bat. And bat is supposed to be and it's called, if you go and check the textbook, it's called reservoir of pathogen. And pig is called reservoir of parasite. Right, it's a museum of parasite. You name it and everything is there inside pig, right, in terms of parasite. But in terms of pathogen, say if you, anybody says about epidemics, suddenly things comes in the mind is a viral disease. So virology is kind of a very intact area, and I'm kind of working for last 15 years on this area. And right now, IIT Guwahati is involved in COVID-19 vaccine, which is kind of developed in our lab, and I'm heading that team also. Also in diagnostic front, we are working on COVID-19 diagnosis. So I will talk a little bit about that also. Having said that, coming to the actual topic, which is kind of everybody is interested right now, is COVID-19. And as everybody know about a lot of things about COVID-19, because things are vibrant in media and a lot of things are kind of circulating in web portal. But something which is very pertinent to the audience here is you have to understand the basic of the virus, right? As such, virus is sessile. Virus is not that pathogenic, right? If you start looking into back and see that what is SARS-CoV-1, this is SARS-CoV-2, that was identified and isolated a long time back in 2004 in China, and that caused epidemics in China. And the disease was spreading only to the neighboring hospitals only in China, 2004. It was not spread it across, right? And that was restricted to China, and therefore we didn't understand the gravity of COVID, say 2004 at that time. That's kind of a thing. And if you see, I'm also a veterinary doctor, so I just wanted to emphasize some point in terms of veterinary aspect also. So we do have a lot of books of virology in veterinary sciences. And there is a chapter called coronavirus in each and every veterinary virology book. And the first line that differentiates that coronavirus chapter says, every cat is having a different coronavirus. That means cat is an outstanding host that harbors coronavirus. Each and every type of coronavirus is present in cat. And what is emphasized is each and every cat is having a separate coronavirus. So see, the huge mutation is happening. I don't know how many of you are from biology background, but the virus contains RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, which is an error prone. So each time the virus replicates in the human cytoplasm or cell, it changes the genotype, right? It changes the genome. So each and every virus genome sequences is entirely different, right? And what Dr. Datta emphasized that we do have less mortality in India. And the basic fundamental behind that less mortality is how the virus isolated from Indian patients and in India is less pathogenic. That means it's attenuated. It's not that pathogenic that can cause disease condition in human beings. So kind of we are safe and we are lucky that we do have a strain that is less pathogenic. Having said that, we do have strains that cause huge mortality in some population also, right? Apart from metabolic disorders and other things. So it's kind of well known. So since the topic is about epidemics, right? The terminology changes slightly when it talks about the animal, and it called epizootics, right? So similar kind of terms comes into picture when you talk about the disease which are very common in case of animal. And some of the example you already gone through, and I just wanted to emphasize the point that Northeast is the vulnerable area in terms of animal disease migration, because things are less reported in this part of the country. Say bird flu, or say swine flu, H1N1, which is a disease of swine, but the virus can easily spread to the human beings, right? So if a person identified a disease in a pig farm, if that person can report that thing, because it's a notifiable disease, as Dr. Barua pointed out, we do have certain disease condition. When he encounters any disease condition in medical hospital or any kind of clinical setup, you have to report it to the state government that we do have an we encountered a disease condition in so-and-so patient and all. Similarly, in case of veterinary setup, also the same thing. If there is an outbreak of pig, swine flu, you have to report. There is a similar kind of disease called swine fever, which is caused by classical swine fever virus, huge number of mortality associated with that also. So we do have a very important link between veterinary sector and the clinical human aspect, right? So there should be a very important tie-up required in between the veterinary setup and the human setup, because the only thing which is lacking in the present situation is there is absolutely no communication, at least in the northeastern part of the country. And so it's true for across globe, kind of veterinary is neglected, but you have to understand it's a very, very important area to look into. What we are suffering right now, COVID-19, is a kind of negligence that happened from the veterinary point of view, right? Because you never know, certainly the report will come in 2021 January that COVID-19 is spread to cow, right? And then everybody will be mad that how we will drink milk, because the COVID-19 virus will spread in milk. And that's something very important that everybody of us consumes, right? Apart from vegetarian or non-vegetarian population. So there is a very important link between, say, veterinary epidemiology and human epidemiology. So there should be a requirement of huge connection between these two areas per se. So that's a major area which I would like to, wanted to emphasize. And two more things which I kind of wanted to tell is some of the disease which are very common in northeastern part of the country. One is what Dr. Datta emphasized, dengue. There is a Vibhan or dengue called Japanese encephalitis virus. It's caused by a flavivirus group of flavivirus family. And this is all dengue, West Nile, chikungunya. These are all coming under the same family. But JEV is very important because it is transmitted by mosquito and it's causing a huge kind of inflammation in brain, and that's caused Japanese encephalitis. Encephalitis stands for inflammation in brain. So this JEV, if you see and start looking into the biology of JEV, JEV is a disease prevalent in pigs, right? So there is a time which we don't know that it jumps from pig to an human, right? And of course there is a vector associated with it. Vector stands for mosquito that can transmit the disease from pig to human and also from human to human. So the disease is kind of very important in terms of understanding various disease condition. So data management is very important when it comes to northeastern part of the country, and there should be a very clean up tie between a veterinary epidemiologist or veterinary clinician as well as from the medical point of view. And finally, I just wanted to conclude a point that there is a very important need to tell people and get an idea about the actual gravity of the disease, right? Most of the time things are persuaded in a wrong direction, and that's what causing havoc to the people. Like in COVID-19 also, just before lockdown, there was a lot of things in the media and all. So there should be a requirement of extension education. Extension education stands for just educating people in a proper way so that they can understand the disease, how they are happening, what are the actual cause of the disease, and how you can manage the disease actually, right? Where to go, where to report, how, and best way you can manage the disease. And that's how you can just manage any kind of disease. And epidemics is one such thing. So epidemics can come anytime. You never know, probably we may change the name of COVID-19 into COVID-21, right? So we don't know. Still we are suffering, and we have to be with the virus for maybe longer duration. So thank you so much, and I'll be happy to answer any question if you may have, or otherwise we'll start the session, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Datta, and thank you, Dr. Sachin Kumar. Anyone want to ask any question?
So I guess what you said is very correct actually, but your question is very specific towards the food, I guess, right? You're talking about animal food or? Right. So actually, there are two ways to look into the food which we are giving to animal and the animal which we are consuming. For example, poultry, fish, and other things. So since Dr. Datta pointed out a very pertinent point, which I think some of you might escaped, is called antimicrobial resistance. So I'll just give you an example of a very gravity situation which is kind of coming in India. I'll start with the milk. So we are consuming everyday milk. And if you go to the countryside, most of the time the farmers used to say that, look, the udder, the sack where the milk is coming is kind of very hard. Milk is not coming. And you know, when I squeeze it very hard, the milk is coming as a yellowish, right? There is a disease condition in animal that caused by E. coli and salmonella and many other disease condition called mastitis. And the disease, the milk is with this E. coli and all. So basically milk is coming, and people used to see and think in a village side, if you see, and ask the people that milk peela hai, shayad isme acha fat hoga, badhiya milk hai. But kind of people ignored this point that it's a pus and it's full of bacteria actually. And knowingly or unknowingly, we are consuming that food. Of course, we are boiling it out hugely, but that's fine. We are still getting the genetic material of bacteria. Somehow, the antibiotic in US, when I was a graduate student in University of Maryland, I used to get a very base level antibiotic, penicillin and all. But here you go to the medical, I just don't take it otherwise, because most of the time it starts with a very high dose of antibiotic, like ciprofloxacin or some other group, which is a DNA guidance inhibitor if you go and hunt out the actual mechanism of this bacteria. So you see, this started from a milk and it is coming to the human way. So this is creating a resistance to that particular antibiotic. Now, if you start and looking into COVID-19 situation, we started with a chloroquine, the starting tablet. Chloroquine is acid virus blocker. So basically it started an anti-malarial drug. And then we have started azithromycin and other thing, but azithromycin is also used for other antibiotic. Right? There is no point in giving azithromycin right now when a person is suffering from a viral disease, because it's not of no use, absolutely no use. So accumulating those antimicrobial in the body is kind of, it's not a good thing. And once a person is suffering, actually a person who is consuming that milk is suffering at the downside, maybe after 3 months or 4 months, if he is suffering from any kind of disease condition, and if doctors gives him azithromycin, there is absolutely of no use. But at that time, there was a requirement. So if you see, this situation started from milk, but it turned out to be that particular person is more susceptible or kind of reactive to azithromycin. So you have to give some other antibiotic. So this is a situation that comes from the food cycle actually, and this is milk. Similar thing is egg, because poultry production is such a good business, not in Northeast, across India, that farmer don't want anything beyond 42 days, because if it increased to 43rd day, there is a loss of, say, 1 day food and all. So he just want to market it out after 42 days, right? And to gain the body weight, he's feeding any nonsense stuff, including all growth promoter, antimicrobial stuff, and fat accumulator and all. So what you are taking is basically white fat at the end of the day. And then these are all accumulated in egg also. So egg and meat, poultry meat, it's the same way. So ultimately we are getting into an area where antimicrobial is, and that's a classical example is Mycobacteria tuberculosis, where we are we are in the verge of getting a very diverse form of MTV, which we're calling XMTB, which is microbial resistance, and that's not reacting to any rifampicin or any classical drug of Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So of course, we have to really look into what we are feeding to the animal and what we are taking. But of course, that's a very typical question, and being a researcher, I don't know what to answer and how to answer. But yeah, I think somebody who is really in the field looking into that, because I am also consuming the same thing, and absolutely I can't do. But most of the time, one can avoid and do as much as possible. Yes, yes, of course. Well, most of the time we are kind of lacking one thing, that we are Indian and our breeds are the best actually. Of course, we are getting 1 kg of the milk from our indigenous variety, but where we should have our pure inbreed line, so that we proudly say that it is our Indian breed. Because you put any disease, they are not getting infection. So we are having a breed of animals which are disease tolerant, but of course low in productivity. But then we have Holstein Friesian or Jersey animals, which are very high producer, but very susceptible in disease condition. But most of the time we are crossing it and we are missing our own genetic makeup slowly. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Sachin Kumar. Basically I want to say something. As Dr. Datta, I think, told regarding this coronavirus, it came from the China. But earlier, I know that one cholera epidemic was there, Asiatic cholera, that went to London, that went to China from India itself. So cholera is very much epidemic was there, but I didn't see any cholera case in my medical life. It was so something was like that earlier. Then another thing, so from all this discussion, we came to know that how a disease occurs, we should know that. How epidemic occurs. Epidemic, it may be, so it may come from the animals, or it may be waterborne or foodborne. So cholera is a foodborne or waterborne disease. Acute gastroenteritis, no? These are other viral diseases there. These are also some waterborne viral diseases are there. So we have to know how it comes. Say this coronavirus, no, it doesn't come through mosquito. It goes from person to person through respiratory tract. Like other virus like measles, chickenpox, all the viruses, they are respiratory ones. So how it comes? So that is the prevention part I am saying. So in case of coronavirus, we are wearing mask. That will help. Then hand hygiene, all those things. And regarding prevention of those coming from the food and water, no? So we have to take care of food and water. How we are taking, how we are consuming, no? How it is produced, how it is processed. So say if you take properly boiled milk, no, then I think there should not be any problem. Then meat also. So that also I don't know, that Wuhan, no, they used to take some raw meat, that in that way it came. But I know sometimes it is told like that, no, it is human made also. But as a clinician, I can't say that. I don't know regarding that also. How you are taking, how you are consuming the food, that is one thing. How you process your food. Then another thing that Dr. Sachin Kumar told us, yes, now doctors are using antibiotics right and left. Even in the guidelines also, this coronavirus treatment is changing. Sometimes they used azithromycin. Now they are saying doxycycline and that ivermectin, that is we used to treat scabies. So these guidelines are now given by government itself. That is the problem here also I am facing. Suppose if I am not giving them antibiotic, if something happens, no, so I may held responsible. As because now Epidemic Disease Act 1897 is going on now. And that is another act, no, almost 100 years old act. Definitely we have to do some modification in that act. Some modification was there done recently only in April 2020. And that is only regarding the protection of the healthcare providers. That some amendment was done. But at that time there was, say 100 years back, no, that what is we call the media. Media was not that time that much in, no. Now media is taking the main part. I think, no, if you open the TV, you can come to know that coronavirus is there. But if you switch off the TV, you may not feel like that. That is another thing. So as a whole, we have to think prevention. In any kind of epidemic, pandemic, if you can't prevent that, no, it will be very difficult. So prevention, mainly one, nowadays, actually some other university outside India, even India is also doing one thing, that is health promotion. This health promotion, it do not direct towards any disease. It basically enables people to know about the health related condition. Then you have to know about the disease on your own. So there are 4 parts of this health promotion. Number 1 is health education. Health education, that is one of the most cost effective intervention, health education. So you should know how to wear a mask. No, I can advise you to wear a mask, but you should know how to wear a mask. Actually, this front part of the mask should not be touched. That is one main thing. Then how to wash your hand, how to use a sanitizer. So this health education is very much required. Then another thing is environmental modification. That is, suppose proper drinking water, safe drinking water, then sanitary latrines. Then if we are making a house, no, we can how comfortable or how disease resistant kind of the, so making a house, all those things. And another thing, the nutritional intervention. Even coronavirus also, I think one paper is also there regarding immunity booster. We used to tell that take this kind of food, no? Actually, nowadays all the people are coming to the hospital, they want some vitamin like that, but I don't know how they will work. You have to take it from natural source. But again, you know that if you want to get some natural food, that is also nowadays become very difficult due to this business purpose. No, they used to use some artificial chemicals, some pesticides like that. So nutritional intervention is very much important. And last is the lifestyle and behavioral changes. We have to change our lifestyle. We have to do some behavioral changes. As because now we are talking about the communicable epidemics. But actually 1 year back, no, I am a diabetologist, so I was busy with epidemics of non-communicable disease like diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, then psychological problem. So these also we have to address as a whole. Then the psychosocial impact of the epidemics, how coronavirus is impacting the psychosocial issues, that is also not addressed in that Epidemic Disease Act. So actually there should be, actually it's a teamwork only, no? We clinician can work with the help of epidemiologists, then virologists or any bioscience, bioengineering background people. So we should do something in collaboration. And I'm sorry, Chairman sir is not there, I think, today. So
You would have been the right
main person to
yes. Being a member of the standing committee of parliamentary affairs, so we're expecting that we would convey the message to him and the real situation of the Northeast and like emerging issues that might we are expecting to face in the recent future. But unfortunately, yes sir.
So that's all from my side. No, if anyone want to say something or anyone wants to ask some question.
Actually, I have a question, if I may. Is that what you, Dr. Guru, and Dr. Sachin, you have said that this dilemma is always there. Like what medicine to give when it is a viral infection. So basically, there is always a kind of a confusion in the mind of the person who is actually
No, this is actually all. Actually, I'm not discussing it that health regarding health education or proper education of a person. No, that is the main. Actually, one paper is also there. I think no, from Rekhamuni psychiatric and some psychosocial aspect. No, maybe we may learn something from that also. But definitely, there is some psychological issues are always there. Definitely, and we have to always address that also.
Just wanted to, so sometime back we are the first from India to report in April, I guess, April or May, that we have this COVID-19 strain in India, which is less virulent. So we did a study and we did all the complete genome sequence of COVID-19 initial virus actually from Gujarat. Of course, unfortunately, we haven't done anything from Northeast. We do have a whole repository in GMCH, but we have to do it. So what was done, and that's very true with what people are talking about this one. So the guy was, so there was a family and the elder person from the that family got COVID-19 from his son, and that son got a infection from community infection, and he recovered and everything. But father got infected from son, and then he also recovered eventually, and everything was fine. And after 20 days, on one very fine morning, unfortunately, he just slept in the bathroom, and he was having some terrible other problem, and he unfortunately died. Now, the government of Gujarat put his case into COVID-19 basket, saying that the death happened because of COVID-19, because without knowing that whole situation that a person is suffering, and that's created the whole thing actually. And then when we started looking into this one, so they strongly recommended to government of Gujarat that we have to isolate the mortality of COVID-19, specific mortality from COVID-19 to any other mortality. The second case I will just highlight the Orissa. The initial death of COVID-19 reported from Orissa was not from COVID-19 but from H1N1, because there was a swine flu going on at that time. So the death happened in Orissa is because of the swine flu. But then people are so into this COVID-19 business that they were trying to highlight that the death is happened because of the COVID-19. And there was no real epidemiology of H1N1 at that time. And it is spread from mouth to mouth actually, and that's kind of spreaded by educationists, more education-based people like us, who are just discussing this thing in a wrong way, and that's how it is spreading. Of course, what Dr. Barua pointed out is very correct, that one has to look into and educate. The health education is the most important thing in current situation, particularly in COVID-19 context.
I would like to add that maybe like it's probably this is regarding the question that like what to take, what not to take, whose advice to take, whose advice not to take. In my personal thing, what I consider myself as a case control type of thing. Okay, I either stick to one thing or the other. I don't do both at the same time. So if people do something or they don't want to do something, just stick to one thing. You are either a case or a control. Like either whether you survive or not out of that like treatment, that's also a statistical thing. And statistics is never 100% probability is there of anything. So the main problem is actually communicating the statistical, like clinical issues to common people, which cannot be done. I don't believe it in any day that will be for complete, like there will be complete communication understanding. So my thing, what I personally follow in these cases, is that either I stick to one opinion or the other, whichever I think until that course is over, I'm on that side. Even if it's a failure, that I am contributing to the medical science, that was a failure. Like I volunteered to a martyrdom or something. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. But the thing is that unless we take that stand, if the dilemma exists, then it will be a problem. Somehow we have to stick to either to take one side, not both at the same time or multiple sides. Sir, any opinions, please?
No, I think it is time to conclude the session. I think if someone want to ask us, we can talk outside also. So thank you, Dr. Datta. Thank you, Professor Sin Kumar. And just I'm concluding the session, and thank you all for your patient hearing. And thank you, the organizers also, for organizing such a nice event and inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. Now we are going to present a video on a case study on immunity booster and herbal medicine by R.K. Kalita, retired IS officer, Guwahati. Thank you, R.K. Kalita, sir. Thank you to all our delegates. We will now move on to our paper presentation, both online and offline. Each speaker would be given 8 minutes for it. I offer best wishes to all the presenters for their presentation. A study on psychological stress during COVID-19 among the people of Assam, their resilience building and hope for future by Rekhamoni Saikia, clinical psychologist, Golahat.
Good morning, everyone. Respected, respected teachers and members of the scientific committee, members of the scientific committee, and the guests and everyone present here. Today, my topic is a study on psychological research, psychological stress during COVID-19 amongst the people of Assam, their resilience building and hope for future. My name is Rekhamoni Saikia and I have done my master's in clinical psychology stressed than people of the age group of 20 to 39 and the male population. The COVID-19 virus has not only affected individuals around the globe on these 3 dimensions only, but also affected every aspect of our life in some way or the other. On the positive side, people are really hopeful about the future, and most of them are highly resilient in dealing with the situation effectively. So that's it. Thank you so much. And I want to reply to Sir when he put for the question about the mental, like, log to pagal kahenge, that statement. So how can we deal with it? So it's not that change is not happening. Changes is happening from, like, if we see 10 years ago, people were much more conservative than they are today. Like today, at least we are talking about it. Like before 10 years, we were not at all aware about it, you can say. So now what we need is extensive education, as Sir has mentioned. And obviously today, this is a time of media, so we also need media influence as well. And lifestyle change is also important. And the 2 things I personally believe is awareness, not only aware about the environment or the surrounding, but also awareness, self-awareness is important. And the second thing is acceptance. When you accept certain changes, or acceptance is always difficult as a person, like, awareness and acceptance, if done right and with proper maybe techniques, or maybe it's the wrong word, with an open mind, if it is done, then surely this taboo will end soon. So that's it. Thank you so much. Any question?
One question I had.
Yes, sir.
There are 2 questions. One is, you talked about awareness. What is your take on too much awareness? Do you think that too much awareness sometimes makes us more anxious?
Uh,
I hear all the time cholesterol happening, diabetes happening, and I'm being more prone to anxiety of that sort.
yeah,
I
then
think that is something, I don't know whether you will agree or not, but from a layman's perspective, what I'm seeing, too much of COVID news, what media is beaming, is making people more anxious.
yeah, that takes us to the next point, that is acceptance. So let us just accept the fact that yes, there is COVID. Yes, I know there is COVID, and there are issues. These are the problems, and the more we are aware, and equally if we accept that things, because if you are, so today you are seeing the television that there is this the cases of death or cases of COVID victims and everything, and then you were like, okay, fine, close the TV, and you did something else, and then tomorrow the same thing, then next day the same thing. That's too much intake of the same information. But then if today you are aware, okay, fine, I know this is the case going on, this is the situation going on, so tomorrow it will be easy for you to see, like, yeah, I saw this, I know I can deal with it effectively. So maybe I'm saying about,
My second question,
yeah,
pertaining to your study, you did your study at a certain time frame, right?
yes, sir.
Where the X amount of information was received by these people, the study group, your study group. Now, was there a attempt to study temporarily, like after 6 months, where that X plus Y amount of information was received by this group? Now, how it is changing? Now, people are becoming more resilient, hopeful, or distressed? How it is?
No, sir, it is just one time study, and I did my study in August to September, and but then through the observations, what I've observed is in February, March, the situation was it was such a chaos, and everywhere it was a panicky situation. But after 6 months into it, people are much more relaxed than what they were experiencing in time of March and April.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have just one query. You stratified the groups into age and gender, but I am more interested in the socio-economic background of the people, probably because people belonging to different socio-economic strata may have their different response to the situation.
Yes, sir.
Because there were people who were working at my home for some construction work, and for them there was no COVID. They were never stressed.
Yes, sir.
The thing is that, so depending on how much they are being pressed upon, probably the responses would have been different.
Yes.
If they belong to, if you you had considered like different socioeconomic strata of those people participating in your study. What's your take on that?
Yeah, obviously there would be different results. I may find difference, but I can't see what result I will find because the study is not done yet. So if I get an opportunity after this, I will surely take this as an advice and work on that area as well.
You know like the socioeconomic groups like of your
Yes, sir.
participants. So probably you can do the analysis do on the same data set if you know their socioeconomic background. If you have that information in your data, you don't have to redo everything, but if you know the socioeconomic status of each and every participant, then probably you can like do it, the same analysis.
Yeah, this can
but
be done.
This on the basis of their the socioeconomic status. You may consider that.
Cluster them out.
Yeah, cluster them out.
Yes, sir, this can be done.
And from this data set itself, you will get another level.
Yes.
Purely
Education level. But I think I also have to collect data from the people who works at home or the
Who
labor
were these
group.
people like those 200 people? Who were
Yeah.
those individuals?
They were the middle class groups, I would say. Yes.
Fine.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rekhamoni Saikia. Now moving on to the next, a study on the different kinds of microorganisms causing bloodstream infection isolated from clinical culture samples and their antimicrobial profile, a hospital-based study by Debashis Barua, Dr. Debajyoti Lahon, Dr. Monalisa Saikia Barua, Asian Institute of Management and Technology, Guwahati.
who has been administered cancer chemotherapy, he at his last stage maybe say that he has to take a chemotherapy port or a catheter port. So that might also lead, as they are very much immunosuppressive, those kind of patients, those cancer patients. So definitely a lot of infections might take place from those port and enter into our bloodstream infections. So the challenges ahead, the next slide please. The challenges as you can see, pan that drug combination was used to treat Klebsiella pneumonia. Uh, Tigecycline and colistin was administered to the patient, and with due course of time he was able to recover. So these kind of innovative processes should go. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir. Sir, we reported around 292 positive cases. 292 blood culture cases. No, sir. In due course of time, if I find the opportunity, I would like to continue that. Yes, sir. Resistance to tetracycline. That is very interesting aspect to go for any diagnostic aspect. I may have to do a study on that, sir. sir.
cause of these antimicrobial resistance.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Now, as the chairman of today's session, Dr. Rajdeep Roy sir has arrived. I request Ms. Aditi Goswami to felicitate sir with a Fulam Gamucha. Now, I request the chairman of today's session, Dr. Rajdeep Roy sir, to say some words.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would express my forgiveness. I actually missed because of certain preoccupation and I got delayed. It's very interesting to be present here amidst all students who are doing research and talking on the management of epidemic with little experience of medical science for the last 25-26 years. I realize how important it is in present times to talk about epidemics and find a way out of this, because we know that a lot of development has taken place over the last few decades. But despite all these developments, we still think that we know so little about certain organisms and their behavioral pattern. You are all aware of the fact that a bubonic plague attacked India, rather the western part of India, around 1918, and we had almost more than a million deaths around that time. And that deaths happened only because we were not aware of what were the ways rather to encounter those epidemics. With the advent of streptomycin in 1940, things started changing, with a lot of brains getting into working on antibiotics, newer antibiotics, their pitfalls, their complication, the good effects. Then there came an era of other antibiotics being discovered. And in the 80s and 90s, we saw a lot of antibiotics coming to the market, rather flooding the market. And we doctors were, bombarded with this antibiotic acting on gram-negative, the other one acting on gram-positive, something coming out to act both on gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria. So things started for doctors like me I am basically an orthopedic surgeon with interest in spine and joint replacement. For us, things started brightening up. There was an era when we used to do a simple surgery with 10 shots of antibiotic. Now we have come to a stage where we do knee replacements and spine surgeries with only 3 shots of antibiotics, and then releasing the patient, allowing the patient to go back home after maybe 2 nights in the hospital is amazing progress that mankind has made over the past few decades. But despite knowing and saying all these, we yearn for more and more always. And it is this forum actually which provides us the platform to give flight to our ideas and all. And you young minds, I would especially like to talk to you because in the classroom you are bombarded with history, like history of this antibiotic and this gentleman, this, that and all. There comes a time when you go back home after your class hours and when you are all alone and maybe with your friends and all. That is actually the time when you probably learn the most and you give your ideas some sort of shape so that you can come up with something and all. I request all of you not to be bogged down by what other people will say, what your friends will say, whether this idea is pertaining to science or it has any basis in science or it is absolutely unscientific, because you do not know. Sometimes some of the weirdest of ideas actually bear fruit. So sometimes when you are doing research and all, you always should keep in mind that a negative result is also very important, because it will probably give some sort of a direction to all those researchers who are at your level, or maybe some generation later they will come and give a reference to you, because this gentleman has done this research and he had a negative result. So this negative result also becomes a reference point. I actually did my thesis in internal fixation of the spine while I was at Dibrugarh Medical College. Then I went to my studies, took me 7 shores apart to Scotland to do my MCH in surgery. There I was given a topic, and to my amazement actually, I was handed over a topic where I could, it was almost like a science, this thing, where there was a lot of play with the CAD. So I was actually asked to take photographs of an object and then remodel this object with the CAD software. And it was almost an engineering topic and all. So when I realized that what is the utility of this research and all, and I could not find an answer, then I took me to my guide, Professor Tim Drew, and I told him, where is the utility of this? I am a doctor and I'm not interested in scientific this thing of what physics will say and light will say. And he took me to a round one day to a shoe market. And he told me the next generation of shoe market, when you go to a shoe shop to buy your footwear and all, they will give you a scanner where you will put your foot and they will take a photograph of your, they will basically scan the undersurface of your foot and all. And then they will, like, we go these days to a tailor shop, we give a piece of cloth and tell them, this is my suit, I need my suit to be designed like this. So every person in this world have their own sizes and shapes and all. They come in where it's this thing. So we go to a tailor to make our clothes and all. So when you go to a shoe shop like this, a footwear shop, they will scan your footwear, they will scan your foot rather, and they will ask you that you design, you order a shoe from any of these rack and all. So you will ask for maybe model A of the shoe, and your customized shoe will come to you after about 2 or 3 days when this footwear company will make a shoe. So therein lies the research. What I thought was absolutely an engineering topic out of the world to me. I realized after a few days that what they were talking is very interesting. Later when I went back, I did my thesis, it was accepted by the Dundee University and all. After a few years, I got a communication that this has been accepted as one of the method of, steps in scanning of your foot and all. So it gives you a lot of satisfactions sometime down the line. That's what I actually say to you, that do not be bothered about sometimes by negative results or what other people will say or what your friends will say. Be bold enough to do it. Come back here and talk to your friends and guides and all. They will sometimes give you ideas. And as we were talking yesterday, when you actually are at a loss of ideas, you look at nature, you will find some solution somewhere there. And this management of epidemics, obviously you young minds will be probably brainstorming and finding a solution to all these issues. As a lawmaker, again, I stepped out from my medical science and I became a politician. I was in public life. I happened to win the MP election. Today I'm a lawmaker, and when I sit in the parliament, I find there are almost 68 doctors in the parliament, which is a very amazing thing and all. And just few days back, we actually passed an Epidemic Act in India. And the previous Epidemic Act that was governing us in our country was passed in 1897 when the Britishers were here. So it's after almost about 123 years that we have done away with the old Epidemic Act, and now we will be guided. That has been accepted, signed by the President of our country. So we will now be governed by a new Epidemic Act. So this is what I would like to say. I am sorry to be late, but this is a beginning. I hope, I wish you all the best for all those who are presenting papers, and my best wishes to all the faculty members who are guiding. I hope we will see newer developments, newer lights after this session, and we'll go back from here richer in thoughts and ideas. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chairman, sir. Moving on with the paper presentation, now I would like to call Dr. Rali Sangno and Nirakar Nayak on potential impacts of COVID-19 on the environment and economy of Arunachal Pradesh remote, a Himalayan state in Northeast India, Department of EE-NIT, Arunachal Pradesh. Apology. Now, Management of Epidemics in India and Northeastern Region, Archit Sharma and Gaurav Sangmai, Department of Civil Engineering, Nerisht, Nirjuli, Arunachal Pradesh. Thank you to all the presenters. Now, I would like to invite Aditi Goswami to give the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon to one and all present here. On the behalf of Northeast Green Summit, I would like to extend my heartiest gratitude to one and all present here. It was an overall and fascinating experience to come out of the four walls and indulge ourselves in this interactive session. First of all, I would like to thank all our panelists, Dr. Bharat Lal Datta sir, Dr. Anuj Kumar Barua sir, Dr. Sachin Kumar sir, and Dr. Rajdeep Roy sir, for having us here and updating us with their brainstorming information on our topic today. And also R.K. Kalita sir for his video presentation. Next, I would like to thank all the presenters for their paper presentation, and for sure we can't ignore the audience who has been an important part in pulling this session throughout. This session would not have been this interactive without your active participation and cooperation. Last but not the least, I thank the technical coordinators for constantly managing and supporting the program both virtually and in real time. Thank you and wish you all a wonderful day ahead.